9, which means we are on Faker Shaker number 2 for this card series. This one looks completely different, but I am so glad that you joined me for this card class. I am excited to show it off. I'm excited to do it again, and I am excited that you are following along with me and participating in this amazing card series. It is the launch for my business, the Sunshine Stampin Co, and I am so excited for all of the fun things that we have in store for you. So, until then, we are making card number 9. So, here it is. I should show it off for those who haven't seen it. So we have another Faker Shaker card. We've got the beautiful gold sequin, not sequins, gold glitter rhinestoney things that do not have adhesive on it, which is why it makes for an amazing shaker card. On the inside, we have big thanks. And from our Advent kit, you will grab this piece of DSP. You also need this laser wreath and this ephemera rectangle. For the inside, you will also be using this itty bitty birdie. If you are participating in this class with me, you will also receive from me a Darling Duckling card base, a clear envelope, a white inside mat, as well as a Misty Moonlight mat for the outside, and then a rectangle of vellum as well. So, first and foremost, the best place to start is always to burnish our card base. So let's do that. I'm going to actually switch back. I'm paranoid about my audio, so just making sure that that's still there and still working, which of course it is. So I'm going to move these pieces off to the side and burnish my card base. Okay, then we are going to trim down our DSP. Again, I don't think this one is directional in any way, shape, or form. And we are on card number 9, so let me just grab my cheat sheet. Okay, DSP is at 5. By 3 3/4. Okay. That mat can be stuck down to our Misty Moonlight mat. So I will grab my liquid adhesive. Okay, get that nice and stuck down. Okay, then we are going to go back to our clear envelope. When you put it in your clear envelope, go ahead and make sure your flap side is up. Then you're just going to tuck it in there. Then we'll bring in from door number 3 our gold embellishment pieces. Just like the last shaker card, you want to make sure you put enough in, but you don't need or want an overwhelming amount. So that's not quite enough, and actually you're the judge of that. You're the judge of what's enough or too much, but I don't want to use too much to make it too overly full. We don't want to not be able to see any of the DSP, but of course you don't want it to be too few as well that it looks empty. So to me, that's what's going to look like the appropriate amount. Then I'm just going to flip it over. Now, where you normally would seal a card in here, You're going to want to close it tighter than that. So I'm going to peel the backing off, fold this over nice and secure and snug. And then I'm just going to tap it to bring all of the little pieces down. And then I want to securely pull over the top part. So I'm going to flip it over, bring in my tear and tape, and run tear and tape across that entire top edge. I don't need to fight with putting that back because I need to use it again. All right, so then I was a little short here, which is not the end of the world, but I am going to put just a smidgen. If you have glue dots, you could just put a glue dot in a corner like that. Then we'll go ahead and peel that back. And peel that off. And then pull and secure the top. If you don't want this buckly corner here, it's not the worst, but you can miter that off as well. And that would look like grabbing your scissor and just trimming that down. Don't use your adhesive scissor. Although you definitely don't want to use your ribbon scissor. So I just kind of mitered that at an angle to release some of that tension. I do not recall doing that in the first one, so it definitely is not a necessary step, but one fine detail that you could do. Now that it is secure, go ahead and run tear and tape along the entire back. Oh, okay. Then stick it down. And tear all of the backings off. And a little bit of extra there, which I'm going to put in this empty corner over here. Unlike traditional shaker cards where you had to be certain that every portion of your card or your base or your mat or whatever, acetate, whatever you were using, had adhesive completely enclosed around it, this is not as particular as that. So in a traditional shaker card, you have to make sure that your pieces are not going to fall out, whereas this is fully contained within the envelope, so it's less particular in that regard. This is the hardest part, making sure that it's at least somewhat centered. So, say a prayer and stick it down. Okay. Then we're back at the front with some stamping. Okay. You Are So Appreciated from Label Me Grateful is going to go on the ephemera piece. And then Big Thanks from the 12 Days of Crafting Fun Advent Calendar is going to go on the inside. So both of those are stamped in Misty Moonlight. And we will keep the Misty Moonlight out for our sponging. All right, You Are So Appreciated. So this Label Me Grateful set is one of our cling stamp sets, which means it is highly advised that you practice on a scrap piece of paper. So when you do that, you want to make sure that you are square on your scrap so that you can tell how to pivot your stamp to make it as straight as possible. So basically, I just learned that, yes, there's a halo on the bottom, so I'm going to want to clean that up. And also, what looked straight to me needs to slope upward just a hint. So I'm going to re-ink it and then try my new philosophy of looks straight to me, tilt it up. I overcompensated. That is why you practice. Okay, so again, looks straight to me, tilt it a little up. That looks pretty good. Okay, especially important on the ephemera because you only get one shot. Now, if it doesn't work, you can flip it over. You just will lose the gold, or you can just use a scrap. So we are going to stamp this off to the right so that we have room for the wreath. Oh yeah, she's way overcompensated. It is what it is. So I even practiced, guys. I try to not sweat the little things. That's a pretty big little thing, but I can't redo it. It is what it is. Gives it some character. Okay, so we will move that off to the side. 12 days stamp set is going to go over here. Big thanks. Okay. Then we are going to bring in our inside mat. This is a lot less of a challenge just because it is a photopolymer stamp. And there's still no guarantee that it's still going to be straight, but I'm much, much better with the photopolymer stamps. Okay. Moving right along, we are going to go ahead and ink up the wreath while we have our inks out. Bring our scrap paper back in. Our beautifully straight one that didn't end up being straight in the end. Okay. So, Misty Moonlight is going to be the flowers. Grab your blue or Misty Moonlight sponge dauber. Remember, if you've watched any of these videos, you know that this Misty Moonlight is an aggressive color. So we don't want to have too much ink in the sponge when we're putting it on our laser pieces. These laser pieces are very delicate. I love that about them because it adds a lot of interest and excitement to our projects, but it does make doing things like dabbing them more challenging. So again, when I'm trying to concentrate, I'm not very conversational. So for that, I do apologize for the dead air per se. But do your best. You might notice in some instances, I'm spinning my dauber, like on the, what I have been calling flower power type flowers. And then for the more tulipy looking flowers, I like to hold my fingernail at the base, not only to hold the flower still, but also to kind of give the ink a place to stop. I'd rather have the ink on my fingernail rather than the area that I want green. That being said, I can't necessarily get that precise, and I'm definitely not asking you to either. So it is what it is. The colors do start to blend into each other. Mossy Meadow, also quite a dark color on the dauber. So nice and inked off before we move it onto our project. Another thing that I have learned in doing this is I don't want to hold the wreath down too far away from where I am pulling the color away, as in, you know, I don't want to, it just causes more opportunity for it to tear. So I made it about halfway, then I'm going to move my finger and start into the next section. So that is the gist of how I am going to add color to the laser wreath. Okay, now we are at the assembly step. So we have our shaker 90% of the way done. We are then just going to add our wreath and our sentiment. So I like to kind of figure out where this sits the best. I like having a flower exposed on the, like near the sentiment. Too much green down there. So I'll rotate it. Maybe something like that. I think that looks nice. Once I find a spot that I like, just going to lift up the flower and dab a couple of small dots of glue behind it. And then once I have it glued, I'm going to flip it over and put a piece of tear and tape behind just to hold it in place. Once that's good and secure, then we will add some baker's twine. We are going to do a rat's nest with 12 inches of Misty Moonlight and 6 inches of Flirty Flamingo. So that's just a recommendation. You can do however much you want. 6 inches of Flirty Flamingo got it around about once, and 12 inches of Misty Moonlight got it around about twice. That, I should say, is actually quite generous of an amount for that coverage, but I don't like my ribbon to be too short. I want to make sure that I have enough. So that is why that is the case. So I'm going to take and layer them over the top, hold between my fingers, and then I like to do 3 fingers loosely. And then that is roughly the shape of that. Grab my tear and tape and tear it off or peel it off. Miss the garbage, because that always happens. That's why we need to make sure we clean up after ourselves. I'll loosen that up so that a little bit more of it shows. Ah! I want to say something like that. It's a very subtle detail, so it does not matter exactly how it turns out. Flip it over. If you like it, great. I actually would have preferred it be more under the sentiment. So should I do something about that? I think I'll draw it back a little bit. I should have checked it out before I put the tear and tape down, but oopsies. Again, there's never an emergency in crafting that cannot be quote unquote fixed. There's really not an emergency that's ever so bad that it needs to be fixed. So, is what it is. Okay. Looks great. Then we are going to adhere it to our vellum. When doing vellum, I prefer to use tear and tape because liquid glue really does a number on vellum to the extent that it oftentimes warps it. So over the course of trial and error, I have landed on wanting to use, again, I missed the garbage, wanting to use tear and tape. On the end, I will put down some dimensionals. I'm going to flip that over, center it on the vellum. Now this was a tough one to put embellishments on because there's so much going on already. You could even argue to say that it is already embellished because there are embellishments in the shaker. So it is completely up to you whether you want to add embellishments or not. What Chris and I did in the design of this card was to bring in some glitter glue just in the center of the flowers. So if that is what you would like to do, we did that like so. Again, remember, if you are doing glitter glue, you want to make sure to find it a nice, happy home to spend the night because it's nice to get that little peek on your glitter glue, but it really makes it hard to work around when you have wet glue stuck there. So, oh man. Also, if you are doing this, make sure to put your inside in before you do the glitter glue. Okay, so for our inside, we stamped the big thanks and we have a little birdie somewhere. Not quite sure where. So for all of you guys who would like to see how we finished the card, it was the birdie perched on the big thanks. And normally I would go ahead and glue that in, but because of the glitter glue and because I can't find my little birdie friend, we are going to pretend that I did that and call it a day. So if I find the bird will make its way in the card. Until then, we are going to pretend. So here is our card. Such a pretty card. Obviously, thank you card, and definitely always nice to go ahead and give thanks where thanks is due. And I'm positive anyone who would receive this card would be overjoyed that not only you thought of them, but you spent the time and effort to make them such a beautiful card. So thank you so much for joining me today. Card number 9, also known as Faker Shaker number 2, in our 12 Days of Crafting Fun series. Join me tomorrow where we make card number 10, which I'm not going to lie, was one that I struggled as it was coming together, but really, really turned out to be one of my favorites. So stay tuned. Looking forward to making that with you tomorrow. And in the meantime, sending sunshine, rainbows, and bright skies your way.